Batman Arkham City is a special game to me, and I know I say that about a fair few games, but there are games that genuinely hold a special place in my heart. And Arkham City holds that place because it's pretty much the first big budget AAA game that I played on a gaming PC that I didn't build myself, but I put the graphics card into. On Christmas Day, I got an Advent PC, which was Curry's PC World's own brand PCs. It didn't have a graphics card in it. The following day or the day after, whenever the shops opened, I went out and I spent my Christmas money, however much it was, 150, 200 euro, on whatever graphics card I could find. I didn't know anything about them, but somehow I managed to install it. I was about 13 I would have been 13 at the time, going 14. And I just remember getting Arkham City and playing it during Christmas. And this game is just absolutely perfect for this time of year when it's cold out, it's rainy. Some places it's snowy. Over here we don't get snow, we just get a lot of rain and it's quite cold, but not cold enough to snow. But sitting down with the Christmas tree on, playing this game brought me back to when I was 13, and I was just, I don't know, there's just something so special about this game. Not only is it a fantastic game, which I will go into later, I just kind of have to open with that because I think realistically that's why we play games. We play games because yes, they're works of art. Stories are absolutely amazing, graphics are brilliant, different parts of game design are fascinating. But ultimately, the main reason why a lot of us play games, and the main reason why a lot of us will continue to play games, is because of the memories that it creates. The sheer number of games that I have just absolutely amazing memories, whether it be playing GoldenEye or Majora's Mask on the N64 when we get it for the weekend when I was younger, or the first day I ever played a Ratchet and Clank game, or when I played Jack 3, or the list just goes on and on. And when these memories are created, that's what creates a special game. And of course, you can have great memories with a mediocre game. There are certain games that I don't want to go back to ever again because I know that they are probably going to be quite bad and I want to keep my memories intact. But luckily, Arkham City is not one of these games. Back then, it was amazing. I loved playing it around Christmas. Nowadays, I'm playing it around Christmas. It's still amazing. It's crazy how well it holds up. It's also crazy how well and tightly designed this game is. You're never walking around for too long. You're never flying for too long. You're never doing too much combat. You're never doing too much puzzles. The pacing is very, very impressive. And the map, to this day, I have to start with the map. Because when I was playing this game, and bear in mind, I've only ever played this game once, back in 2011 when it came out, or around then, and I can still remember this map to this day. There are open world games that I played 6 months ago nowadays that simply the maps are in no way memorable, and I don't remember anything about them. I couldn't map them out in my head, pardon the pun. But this map, the second I did the intro sequence, which it doesn't take too long, which I appreciate, and you get the bat suit, and you are looking down on the courtroom, I was like, I remember this. And I know that over there, to the right somewhere, is going to be the Watchtower church thing where Joker is. And then once I finish that, I'm going to have to fly over the water, over the bridge, and then I'll go to the steel mill. And absolutely everything about this game I remember because of how well it is made. Now, this was a time when open world games were mostly new. Far Cry 3 wasn't out at this point. And obviously that was the game that kind of pioneered the Ubisoft open world formula. It kind of pushed it into the forefront. And now, since then, I mean, Avatar just came out. Not much has changed. And that's when games started to become bloated. I don't think Far Cry 3 is bloated, but eventually they became bloated. And luckily, Arkham City came in just before this. So now, even though it still is, it's an open world game. There is a main quest line. You have certain challenges, the AR challenges to go around, which are quite difficult. I was pulling my hair out trying to do a couple of them. And then you have the side quests that are marked on your map. But other than that, there's not 40 million different things popping up in your face. Oh, go here. Oh, Joker's here. Oh, the Penguin's here. Oh, find this collectible. It's like the game is a single player story game first and then an open world game second. And nowadays, I think it has quite a unique feel. I have played Arkham Knight now. I'm currently playing it. And later on in Arkham Knight, I think Arkham Knight becomes a bit more formulaic where it feels like a Ubisoft open world game because all them sort of game design stuff had been established, so they were just following what made open world games good. But here they were still trying to figure it out, and like this game is slightly longer than Arkham Asylum, like very slightly, but the open world part of it is only, like, it really is only slightly bigger than the Asylum itself, so it's not an overly large map, and I mean, I could probably just end this video here. I mean, I could probably say the story is fun and entertaining. The graphics, this game still looks absolutely brilliant. When you're on a rooftop and you're seeing the snow, and it's all kind of monotone, but then you have it mixed with the neon lights of Arkham City, you're like, oh yeah, this game still looks good. Character models still look a bit iffy, but I think that's just a problem with these Arkham games, because they just gave them massive shoulders, big blocky heads, but I think that's down to personal preference. But the story here is darker than Arkham Asylum, and Arkham Asylum was already quite dark. So basically, Joker is dying, and he has also injected Batman with whatever is killing him. And this game takes place across a whole day, which is really cool. Arkham Asylum does too. I'm pretty sure Arkham Knight and Arkham Origins, I think they all do it. And I just like that. That's just cool. It's simply just cool. Then you have to go on a big tirade around the city, interacting with all the different villains, from Joker to Harley Quinn to Cobblepot to Bane. And one thing that I really like about this game is that there are certain characters that you won't have to fight. I said this in the first game. It's not like every single villain that you interact with is a battle. They could just be somebody chirping in your ear that you never see, or they could just be leading you towards a side quest line where you just get interesting dialogue, because I think that's where this game really shines, is the dialogue. Because the Batman villains, I've been learning more about Batman because I've seen the Batman films, I've watched small bits of the cartoons, and I've played a lot of the games over the years, but I've never read the comics. I'm not like engrossed in the DC universe. But learning about the different backstories of the villains, and it just gets better in Arkham Knight, might I add, is probably the highlight of this game. They did a lot of, like, story aside and characters aside, they made like absolutely massive improvements to pretty much everything. I understand some people say Arkham Asylum is better than City, but I just don't see it. I think Arkham Asylum is absolutely nothing to Arkham City. I understand it was the foundation that gave City the platform to build upon, but yeah, Arkham City feels so much better than Asylum. Just little things like when you're grappling, Batman can still move, so you don't have to like stop and then grapple, and it gives you like that kind of awkward moment where you're just not moving. The combat also feels just way more fluid, and they also fixed one of the main problems I had with the Arkham Asylum combat, where they actually give you stuff to do in combat. Like you can, I know in Asylum you could use your gadgets in combat, but you didn't have to. But here you kind of do. Like, you have to shield enemies and you have to baton enemies, and it's actually been about a week since I've played it, and I'm kind of mixing things up with Arkham Knight, which is probably not a good idea to play them without making the video, but that's just the nature of sort of binging these games to make videos on them. But yeah, the combat just feels, in general, Batman just feels better. He's slightly faster, he's slightly less clunky, but he's still clunky in like the small sections. I mean, like when you're kind of walking around, it can still feel a bit slow. And then there's a couple of things in the controls when you're in the tight spaces that I think most superhero games fail at. I mean, let's be honest, like if you play even the Spider-Man games, which obviously are more modern and have updated controls and stuff, Spider-Man in tight spaces just doesn't work, and Batman doesn't really either. He kind of needs a bit more room, especially because he's like fucking 400 kilos and 6'7" or something like that. He's not that tall, but he's an absolute bruiser anyway. Now, I completely forgot to mention this in the Asylum review, and I don't know how I missed it, but I didn't mention really the detective mode, which was probably one of my biggest issues with Arkham Asylum, because you were just constantly in detective mode. And this game, you're still in detective mode quite a bit, but it's not as bad, because there was parts in Arkham Asylum where you are following a trail of somebody's like alcohol in their blood, and you're literally walking across the whole asylum map in detective mode, and it's just kind of stupid. Here they still do kind of things where you have to do investigations, but it's usually contained to sort of rooms. You're never really like, oh, I'm in detective mode for like 40 minutes here, like just walking, which is a massive improvement. And then I mentioned a lot of issues with the stealth, and here the controls are just better. The stealth, like the inverted takedown, actually works. Dropping down from things is just way less cumbersome, because in Arkham Asylum it just didn't feel like the game ever wanted you to properly drop off something. It almost wanted you to glide kick off the vantage points, whereas here you can actually just drop straight away, and it's not like finicky or whatever. And I think, again, this is a problem with playing Knight now, and also playing the Spider-Man games later. When it comes to using the gadgets, you can quick-fire your gadgets, like hold L2 a triangle, I think is the back claw, and L2 and squares to use the gel. And that's a good system, but they still have this stupid little click the D-pad to move and use whatever gadget you want. And then there's also ones on the diagonal, so you have to like press up and right or down and right to equip a gadget, and that just never felt good. And again, they fix that later on at night, but here it just isn't good whatsoever. It's probably the clunkiest part of the game, if I'm being honest, because they give you a fair few more things, like gadgets to use. In Arkham Knight, they use a radial menu, but here they don't, and I don't know why they didn't do that, but it's a bit of a minor gripe, but it's just kind of all these little things. Like Arkham City, I still love, but now playing it, it's like there are a couple of things that could have been improved, which they are later on in Arkham Knight. And then we have the boss fights, and to be honest, I think this game falls into the same category as Arkham Asylum, where the boss fights just don't inspire anything in me. There's one boss fight that I love, and that's the Mr. Freeze boss fight, because it forces you into, you know, being smart. And how Mr. Freeze works is that when you use an attack on him, he then learns about the attack, and then you can't use it again. You have to attack him, I think, 4 or 5 times, and there's loads of different ways to do it. So you can take out like the electric gun to suck him into one of the electric generators to make him vulnerable, or you can do a great stealth takedown, or you can do a ledge takedown, or you can blow him up through one of the explosive walls or something. And for like 5 minutes I was trying to figure out what to do. I couldn't. But then once you do, you're like, oh, this is actually a really cool boss fight, because it kind of forces you into doing things that otherwise you probably wouldn't. Because, I mean, how many of these boss fights are just like, oh, here's one of the Batman villains. Stun him and punch him. And you just stun him and punch him and then dodge his attacks. And it's like, every single one of them, especially the Joker in Arkham Asylum, was just so boring. And I don't know why they did that with the Joker. But with Mr. Freeze, you actually have to use your brain and figure things out. And like, I was like, oh, why isn't that attack working? And then I was like, oh, maybe he's learning. And then you figure out that he is learning. And I just think it's a clever boss fight, because at the end of the day, it is dodging his attacks, stunning him, and then dealing damage to him. But your brain is actually active doing it, because he follows your footsteps. You're trying to lure him over to where you need him to be. If you want him to lure him over to where the generator is, or where one of the explosive walls are. So I actually really enjoyed that boss fight. And then I'd have to discuss the ending, because when I first played this game, I didn't realize that there was a choice. I was, like 13-year-old kid, and I was just having fun being Batman. So near the ending, spoiler alert, you change the Catwoman. And to be honest, I don't like the Catwoman sections in this game. That is a gripe, because they just don't really feel like they add anything to the game. They could have delivered all these Catwoman stuff in cutscenes and it would have been perfectly fine, because they just randomly in the story, Batman will get kidnapped and then you'll play as Catwoman for like 15 minutes or something. And firstly, she doesn't feel good to like climb buildings, because she has this almost QTE to climb the buildings. And then her combat is, pretty much the same as Batman. It's like just press square and triangle and then double tap L2 every now and again. But anyway, not enough on Catwoman, because I have to talk about her now. So you then change to Catwoman while Batman is kind of in the end of the game, and you're pulling off a heist. And when you get into the vault and pick up whatever you're robbing, you have a choice. You can either leave Arkham City and not save Batman, or go save Batman and leave the treasure. And last time, I didn't realize there was a choice. I just ran. And I can't really remember the ending, but I think Catwoman just leaves. And then all hell breaks loose, because Batman dies and the Titan thing that they're trying to release into the air systems of Arkham City go through and everything goes crazy. Pretty sure that's the ending, but I could be wrong. But this time, I went with a good ending, and I actually saved. And the final boss is fine. It is a completely serviceable boss fight. You fight against Clayface, and again, it's the same thing. Dodge a couple of attacks, stun him, beat the crap out. That's fine. And then, one of the best things is that the Joker dies. And guess what? They don't bring him back. He doesn't inject himself with something to turn him into this big massive beast that you have to fight, but you barely even fight him. It reminds you of a Crash Bandicoot fight like Arkham Asylum. They just let you fight Clayface, who was obviously an enemy that Batman actually needs to fight. Because, to be honest, when the Joker doesn't have any tricks up his sleeve, he's not a formidable foe against Batman. Batman could literally pick him up and snap him in half. And here, they refrain from having a Joker boss fight. I was like, hallelujah. And then the game ends with you taking Joker out, and that's the end of the game. there's a little post sequence where you play as Catwoman and you deal with Two-Face. And then there's also DLC that I didn't really want to touch, to be honest. I'm never really one for DLC. I'm just going to be completely honest. I don't really play DLC. I never do, and I probably will never start. When a game is finished, I'm usually just okay with it. Some people like the DLC. In general, I just completely avoid it unless it's like an action RPG, because I think you just want, I just want more content in my action RPGs. I'll play Borderlands DLC all day, but when it comes to these sort of DLC, I'm never really interested in them. So Arkham City, all these years later, is still a special game. Obviously, you know, I have rose-tinted glasses on. I have a lot of respect for this game. I wouldn't really call it important, because in the grand scheme of things, it's just games, but like an important time in my gaming history. My first AAA PC game that I played with my new graphics card, so it was very exciting. And all these years later, this game still holds up. I think Arkham Asylum, in the last video, I said, look, this game is good. It's no sort of like BioShock where it's like, you need to play this game. But I think Arkham City is a game that I think everybody should play. You don't need to play Arkham Asylum to understand it. You can just jump into City. That's what I did back in the day, and I never felt lost. And yeah, to this day, this game is still a brilliant game to play. It won't take up too much of your time. It has a fun combat system that is better than Asylum. Still needs some work, which they do improve in Arkham Knight. In general, like, there are parts of the game that kind of feel a bit dated, just because, you know, it is a game from 2011. But otherwise, this game is still fantastic. And I would highly recommend everybody go out and play this game. Especially around Christmas, because it's nice when it's cold, it's snowy, and you have the Christmas tree up. So yes, on to Arkham Knight next, a game that I've never played, even though I'm already halfway through it right now, but that's breaking the continuity which I've done in this video. So, this video is coming out whenever it's coming out. Arkham Knight video is coming out probably about a week after it, hopefully, if I finish the game. I have some VR games coming out, VR stuff. And other than that, I'll have my tier list at the end of the year, which I did last year. It was a popular video, so I appreciate everybody watching. We're coming up to the end of the year, so thank you everybody for watching this year, because it's been the best year for the channel. I mean, I've gained well over 1,000 subscribers. I've fucking gotten tens of thousands of views on loads of videos, and my channel's doing good. So thank you everybody. Goodbye.